Okay, so what we're going to cover is we're talking about this 12-month 50% wage subsidy, but there are a bunch of other subsidies as well. One in June this year was 50 plus. Okay, Matt, you should stay because I can probably, whereabouts are you? What state? New South Wales? I can probably get you $30,000 or so, maybe for that person. Depends if they're part-time or full-time and what you're doing. So anyway, stick around. You can probably get it yourself. So there is a 50% wage subsidy, which we're going to cover, and that's training related, but not apprentice as in 17-year-old related. And then there are a bunch of other subsidies as well. So what we're going to cover, the government's actually giving some really amazing financial support at the moment, but most businesses don't realise they're eligible to claim it. I think everybody got so caught up in all the COVID stimulus stuff and the, like in New South Wales, you guys had your 40% wage subsidy if your business had dropped, or Victoria had theirs, Queensland had a little bit of a one as well with $10,000 or something. But what people overlooked in all of that is that there are a bunch of subsidies out there which your business does not have to have dropped income to claim them. I mean, you can, but they're not income dependent. They're basically employment dependent. So this 50% subsidy we're going to talk about is up to $28,000 per employee, and it's not capped. However, there are limits for what they call existing workers, which I'll explain the criteria because there's more opportunities for what you call new workers than are immediately obvious. But basically, if you've hired anybody, part-time in the last year, full-time in the last few months, you could probably get a subsidy for them as long as you're willing to let them learn something new, which, why not? So we will cover, there are conditions on it, of course, and there are exclusions, and the exclusions are increasing over time because, like all of these things, once they come out, then everybody jumps on and takes advantage of it. Some people take more advantage, I can imagine. Okay, Nina, this might be useful for you on both sides of the transaction, then as the training provider and as the employer. So the rules are tightening up, is what I'm saying. This thing has been out for about a year and the rules are getting tighter and tighter. So it is worth having a look at whether you're still eligible and if it is, jumping on it. Once you unlock this funding, then it unlocks a bunch of other linked funding for you, like free courses if you're in New South Wales, subsidised courses if you're in other places, little state incentives like $4,000 here and there for putting people on. So there's a bunch of other money that's linked. And then there's a bunch of other funding that is not linked. So for example, if you're in Victoria at the moment and you hire, there's a whole bunch of different examples, but there's just one. You hire a woman over 45 and it's an additional worker, like it's going to increase your numbers from what you had last 3 months ago, which is the case for most people because a lot of people had staff stood down. Then you potentially get another $20,000 from the state government as well. Anyway, I will explain that in a bit more detail. Why are we doing it? That's usually the question. It's our area of expertise. I mean, a lot of this funding is linked to training people, and I used to run a training organisation. Now we run a consulting business. We're claiming it ourselves. So I've got most of my employees now are claiming this wage subsidy. And after the session, of course, you might get us to help you do it, and we'll explain how you can do that so it's risk-free, kind of, with no fee kind of a deal. Or my goal in this is to give you enough explanation of it all so that if you want to go and do it yourself, you can. There's enough of it to go around for everybody, really. And speaking of that, that's what's really been driving me crazy, is that as usual in this kind of stuff, all the big companies are claiming it all. So I'll show you some numbers in a moment about just how much the big companies are getting. And so we figured if we could do a bit to help some of the smaller organisations get it, then that would be our contribution to the world as well. So a little bit of background. You will remember, it seems like a long time ago now, late 2020, JobKeeper was coming to an end. And JobKeeper was good. I mean, it helped a lot of us out, but it didn't grow any skills in the workforce. And of course, there were other issues with it too, like people getting paid for not working, etc., etc. So this new program is actually quite clever because it's about skill development and job creation, which is a really good idea, basically, I think. There were those flaws of JobKeeper, you know, paid for not working, no value added. So in October last year, this is what's interesting, is that this has been around for a year and hardly anyone's really known about it until recently. And then people know about it, but they think it's just for 17-year-olds or apprentices and things. So they brought in this wage subsidy on the 5th of October last year. There's $2.8 billion, this is federal government, and 100,000 training places. Awesome. Within 3 weeks, actually, not even the first month, 70,000 of those 100,000 trained places were taken up by big companies, because they are training places, not tradie places. And it was for new workers, existing workers, anybody on your workforce. So, of course, some of the big companies, who shall remain nameless, just jumped on and put their entire workforce on it. If anyone's been around for long enough, you'll remember all the traineeship rorting that happened kind of 20 years ago. So it basically happened again. So they tightened up, 3 weeks later, they tightened up the criteria for existing workers and said, okay, you can't just put all of your existing workers on, you can only put certain ones that need certain skills. And there's a little list that I'll show you in a moment, which is the skills shortage areas where your existing workers are eligible. Still 130,000 places were used up by May when the federal budget came out this year. When they did the federal budget, they uncapped the scheme because it has been, or it can be, quite a contributor to creating new jobs. So they made 170,000 more places, an extra $2.7 billion. And they extended the deadline for you to take up the scheme until March next year. Now, everything I'm seeing suggests that it is going to finish in March next year, because they've been making some tweaks around the edges of it, which look like they're already planning for what happens when it finishes. So, which seems like a long way away, but by the time you throw Christmas in between and the fact that it's a few weeks at the moment for government departments to process all that, it's actually not that far away. And then just in the last couple of weeks, they've really tightened up the criteria for existing workers again. So I will explain that to you. Now, feel free to throw questions in as you go, and I'll come back to them. Now, the name of the scheme, and do not get misled by that, is it's called Boosting Apprenticeship Commencements. But it's not just for apprentices, and it's not just for commencements. It's a bit, when you hear about it on the media, they talk about it in the context of hiring more plumbing apprentices and things like that. And it certainly does do that. But it basically has an approved qualification list, and you can enroll your employee in that qualification. It's got to be a combination of on-the-job training and external training, which, you know, you're going to do anyway, presumably with your staff. And as long as the qualification's on the approved list and the person meets certain criteria, then you'll get reimbursed up to 50% of their wages over the year. So it's $7,000 per quarter, basically capped. If you're paying them less than $56,000 a year, then obviously you get half of that. If you pay them more, then you're capped at $7,000. I will show you in a moment that the sort of courses and the sort of people that can get it, so that because people go, oh, apprentices, we don't have apprentices, so just put that aside for a moment. It applies to most of your new employees. I mean, it wouldn't apply for your CEO and things like that, obviously, but basically anybody that you're hiring who's got somebody above them in your hierarchy could be eligible, and some existing ones, and I'll show you the existing examples in a second. The key condition is that they have to enrol in eligible qualifications. Now, there is other funds as well, like the one I mentioned for over 45s in Victoria. There's one for under 25s in Queensland, where you might get $20,000 without having to enrol them in a course. The cool thing is that you can actually double dip. So you can actually get the 28,000 from the federal government and the 20 from the state government, depending on the criteria. But for this one, they have to do a qualification. For the state ones, they don't. I hope I'm not making this too confusing already. I'm only on like slide 4, sorry. Yeah, so you can combine them. You can get up to 90% of person's wages in some cases. Those of you in New South Wales, if you were getting that job saver, you could have claimed this with job saver as well, but I think that's pretty much come to an end now, hasn't it? So just to show you, there's the thing on government letterhead that they put an extra $2.7 billion in. It says, and that's below that one, what is boosting apprenticeship commencements? It's government wage subsidy to encourage employers to take on new apprentices and trainees. Now, that can mean new to your workforce, or it could just be new to the training. So, you know, it really is a good win. I mean, I think one of the things that we've seen since COVID, and the some lessons that we've learned from other countries, that governments realise that stimulating the economy and boosting employment is a key to getting through this. And upskilling employees, I mean, look at I mean, we're hiring at the moment. I'd be interested to know, actually, if you want to pop in the chat if anyone else is hiring. It's crazy out there, isn't it? There's like, there are so many jobs being advertised. I think I've got some numbers later on. So anything that you can do that will help you attract more employees or help you upskill is great. Benefits the economy, benefits us as employers, obviously, and it benefits employees because they get skilled and they get a qualification at the end of it. So eligibility. All employers except for state and federal governments. So if you're a council, if you're an organisation, so you could be a charity, you could be a club, sports club, you could be a private business, you could be a publicly listed business, you could be overseas owned businesses. So a lot of the businesses that were not eligible for JobKeeper are still eligible for this. You could be anywhere in Australia, must be Australia though. Employees have to be in Australia. The headquarters can be anywhere. Any type of industry, any business size, except for if you're only one person operation, then you can't do it because you could hire somebody, but you can't put yourself on it. It's Australian citizens, New Zealand citizens who've been here for more than 6 months. You might be able to tell by my accent that I'm not originally from here. I think pretty much anybody who's hiring Kiwis at the moment, we've all been here for more than 6 months because we're not allowed back into New Zealand. But anyway, that's a whole other story. And anybody who's on a visa that's got a P next to it, so that has got a permanent pathway. So, you know, it could be skilled migrant, could be partner visa, as long as it's one of the ones that is got a permanent residency status attached to it. And it can include professionals and experienced staff as long as they're upskilling. So it could be engineers that you're putting on a project management diploma, or it could be you know, any of your managers that you want to put on a leadership and management diploma, right down to, you know, certificate 2 in hospitality or something for your waiter. So Bruce said, I'll just answer Bruce's question. We have replaced technicians who have left with skills by retired persons who have to be updated and may not complete a course of training, but we train in-house. Eligible. You would need to get that course. You would need to partner up with a training provider, Bruce, and get them an accredited qualification at the end of it. So the requirement of this is that they come out of it at the end with a piece of paper. But you might find it's well worth doing it, because for $28,000 per person and possibly a free or heavily discounted course, it might be worth getting them the piece of paper. I mean, they might not really care whether they get it, but it's, you know, probably doesn't hurt and probably worth it for everybody, really. Happy to have a chat with you about that later and see if there's a simple way through that process. Okay, so just showing you a quick little calculation of a couple of versions of it. So basically, if you had, say, 5 people that you are hiring or you have hired or that are eligible to the existing thing, you're potentially getting $140,000 from the federal government, even if you had to pay full fees for all the courses. And we can refer you to training providers, some of which have government funding for free courses, some of which you have to pay something, depends what the course is. Worst case, if you had to pay like top fees for everything, you're still going to come out with over $100,000. Plus you'll get payroll tax rebates, you'll get work cover discounts, you get additional state rebates. So if the person doesn't have a qualification, in most states you get like another $4,000 or so from the state government. So here's a little example, which I actually got this, I missed something on this one. So in Victoria, you hire an additional person, 45-year-old woman, for an office job, put her on $56,000 for the year. You'll get $28,000 from the federal government. You'll get $20,000 from the state government. You actually will probably get another $4,000 from the state government for training her. So the annual cost I've got is $8,000, but that's actually wrong. That whole person for the year could just cost you $4,000 plus, you know, entitlements. Obviously, there's a bit of extra cost on top of that, like superannuation and holidays and things. But there's an opportunity, and I've certainly been taking it, and quite a few of my friends have been, to actually go and hire a few extra people at this point and get a substantial amount of their salary paid for. If you're in Queensland, if you're in any postcode other than Brisbane City, Sunshine Coast or Gold Coast, so you can be in Logan or Ipswich or Moreton or anywhere in regional Queensland, and you hire a young person who hasn't been in formal employment for the last 8 weeks, so they don't have to be on the dole, they just have to have been not working, could have been at school, whatever, then you'll get your wage subsidy, plus you get another $20,000 from the Queensland government. So those same numbers apply in Queensland as well. Yes, Martin, sure. Give us I'll shoot you an email or something. You can give us a call. Thanks for coming. So there are some serious opportunities now to hire new people and get like projects done, basically. And I'll show you some examples in a moment. But yeah, we put out a podcast. We've had the opportunity to go, okay, well, let's use some of this funding to create the podcast that we've been talking about doing for 2 years. And so stuff like that, which we've been able to do. Sally, is there any state offer for Gold Coast based? Depends. If you're in Gold Coast City Council, there's less, but there still is. So on Gold Coast, you could get the 28,000 from the federal government. If your person doesn't have any other qualifications at that level, you could probably get another 4,000 from the state government. And depending on which city council area you're in, you might get a bit more, but you're going to get, probably 30,000 or more anyway. What industry are you in, Sally? Did you tell me? Okay, so here's just a few interesting stats because I used to be a scientist and I like statistics. Sorry, everybody. 60% of the claims so far have not been in traditional trades. So that's not just for plumbers and electricians things, but obviously it can be, and it's a really good opportunity. Basically, okay, I'll come back to you in a second, Sally. I might be able to help you with that. If you are any kind of traditional tradie type of business, there's an enormous opportunity for you here because you can put a lot of your existing workers on things as well. If you're not in a traditional trade, then there's still an opportunity, but there's fewer of your current staff that would be eligible. 40% are in small business. Yay, that's an improvement on the first 3 weeks. 20% have been for employees over 35 years old, so it's not just for kids. Construction took it up the fastest because they already set out for all this apprenticeship stuff. They understand it. So, naturally the big construction companies jumped on it. But here's some interesting facts that I was looking at the other day, or 2 weeks ago. In May last year, so May 2020, I hopped on Seek because I was thinking it would be a good time to hire because the economy was very quiet. And there were 40-something thousand jobs in total advertised on Seek for the whole country. 2 weeks ago, when we looked, there were nearly 250,000 jobs being advertised, which is 65,000 more than there were the month before. 100,000 of those were in hospitality. And Seek put out a press release that said that there's the record number of jobs, the most jobs that have ever been advertised on Seek in the history of Seek. So we are facing a significant skills shortage. And I was listening to an interesting interview yesterday when I was driving on the radio, and it said, there's always been an argument that migration creates jobs, creates growth, doesn't suppress wages. But, we're seeing right now with the lack of backpackers, students, migrants, etc., that wages just went up by 3-something% according to the Reserve Bank I saw yesterday. So if you're trying to hire somebody, 2 things to think about. One is that you may not be able to get all the skills that you want right now, but this is an opportunity to get someone who's got the right attitude and most of the skills, and then train them and fill the gap and get that training paid for and get their wages paid for while they're training. So you can kind of grow your own rather than buy someone in. And the other thing is that having this extra money gives you the chance to perhaps pay them a little bit more if you have to, so that you can actually compete against everybody else who's hiring. Okay, excellent question from Bruce. Do we have to pay this back if the course is not completed for any reason? Yeah, people with job hopping and stuff are very hard to find. Same here in Queensland, actually. I'd be interested from the New South Wales and Victorian ones who've had quite a different experience, whether you're finding it just as hard to get staff, but it's pretty hard up here. I've got a client on the Sunshine Coast who's trying to hire about 20 people, and they've been trying for about 2 months. They've got 9 so far. So to answer the question, do you have to pay it back? Because that's the thing. What if they stay with you for a few months and then they hop off to somewhere else? No, you don't. As long as you have been engaged in the program and doing the right things, then you can make a claim up until the day that they leave, and you'll get half the wages back for that period. But then obviously the subsidy stops. And if they leave after the end of March, then you can't replace them with someone who's subsidised because the registration date has finished. But if you were to put someone on now and they leave in February, you get 3 months subsidy for them. They leave in February and you replace them, and you get someone else signed up by the end of March, then you could start the 12-month clock again and get another 12-month subsidy. So the thing to think about if you've got people who you're worried aren't going to stay terribly long is when you put them on a course, I'd be looking for a training provider who doesn't make you pay the fees up front, because obviously you don't want to end up paying course fees and getting less back in the wage subsidy. So we can help you figure that out anyway. There's plenty that will let you pay as you go. Extremely hard to find employees in Victoria. That's interesting. It seems to be pretty much universal. So this is actually, I think, a really good potential solution to go, okay, if we can get extra subsidy for them, we can, even if you don't pay them a higher hourly rate, you can afford to give them the odd hour off here and there because you're not paying for all the hours. And, you know, there's all sorts of ways you can give people perks using this that will help you compete in the job market. Isn't it funny when you say compete in the job market, it used to be about competing for a job. Now it's the tide's turned. So new worker opportunities. Let me just explain to you what the examples are where they're counted as a new worker. And the reason that this is important is that anybody that's counted as a new worker, there's a really long list of courses that they can do. If they're counted as an existing worker, the options are fewer, but I'll show you them anyway. So anybody that you have hired on full-time since, what's today, the 18th of November, so since the 90 days, so probably the 20th of August, so the last week of August. Anybody that you've already got working for you who started since August, you can retrospectively put them on this and claim the wage subsidy for 12 months. If you've got anybody that started in the last week of August, give us a quick message afterwards and we can help you at least get the expenditure lodged with the authorities, because you don't have to have completed the application process in 90 days, but you have to have put your name on the list, otherwise you miss out. We've had quite a few, we've been doing these webinars for a few weeks now, and we've had quite a few we've talked to, and it's like 91 days and they've missed out on 48,000 and things. So first thing I would suggest that you do when you get out of here, or even now, is there anybody on your payroll who started in the last week of August or the first week of September? And if so, let's act on those ones really quickly. Everybody else, you know, we've got a bit more time. Right, anybody that's part-time with you who started since November last year. So you've got 12 months from when you hired a part-timer to sign them up for this and still get the new worker incentives. I'm thinking that there's probably quite a few people here who've got part-timers who've started in the last 12 months, and it's kind of a no-brainer that you may as well put them on and get the money. John, you just raised your hands. I don't know what to do with that, sorry. Do you mind popping your question in the chat or the Q&A, or if it's a really long question, we can chat afterwards. But one of these days I need to figure out what I'm supposed to do when people raise their hands. Sorry, I'm supposed to be a technical person and I don't know. So anyone who've had part-time in that 12 months, anybody that you're going to hire between now and the end of March next year, may as well put them on this, get the incentives. Okay, this is just another way of wording above. If you've already hired them, but they've been full-time for less than 90 days or part-time for less than 12 months, you should claim it for them. Can there be a contractor as part-time? Depends what kind of contractor, Sally. So if they are a contractor with an ABN, no. But if they're on like a 12-month contract and they're paid PAYG, then definitely yes. And that's something that might be worth considering. Obviously, we're not industrial relations experts, but if you've got people on casuals or contract, it might be worth giving them a 12-month PAYG contract and getting the wage subsidy for them. Obviously, it depends on your business, but I'll show you some examples of that in a moment. Okay, on that casual, so it doesn't matter how long the casuals have been with you, or if they've been contracting to you with an ABN, if they could have been there for 20 years as a casual, and as long as you upgrade those casuals to part-time or full-time, then you can then claim the wage subsidy for them. Now, something worth thinking about and worth talking to someone with more expertise than us in that area is that if you've had someone who's been a casual for ages and they're on a same sort of roster all the time, the chances are they could be deemed to be part-timers anyway. And if they ever took you to Fair Work, you'd probably have to go back and, you know, pay holiday pay and everything else for them. So you could actually upgrade casuals to part-time, have them on the same hours, and they're going to cost you pretty close to half what they've been costing you, because you're going to get half the wages back. There's minimum hours for part-timers. So in most states, it's 60 hours a month, 15 hours a week averaged. Victoria, it's 13 hours, but if you go by 15, it's probably safe. So if you've got any casuals or part-timers that are doing 60 hours a month or more for you, there's an opportunity to use this program for them. I'm assuming these incentives are based on staff still being employed. John, do you mean, yes, you need to either hire people or keep people, so they have to be working for you. So I don't know if I understood that question properly. If you want to clarify that for me a little bit, did that make sense? Hopefully. So yeah, they've got, but they can be people that you stood down and bring back as well, which I'll explain you that one in a moment. So part-timers, if they've been part-time with you forever, 20 years, and you turn them into full-time, you could potentially get, double the hours and still cost you the same. They get double the hours, they get double the money, you get same cost for twice the labour, and you can get them to do something else for you as well. You could too, once again, industrial relations question, but you could give them a 12-month contract. You don't have to give them a permanent contract. I believe there's something where you can't put someone on a 12-month permanent contract and then turn them back into a casual, but I believe you can turn them back to a part-timer if someone's at a defined contract time. Now these last two, the casuals and part-timers, this is just a small detail, not terribly important at this point, but some of the categories get free courses and they get what they call incentives, which is $4,000 usually from the state government for putting them on a course. But the last two aren't eligible for the free courses, but they are still eligible for the wage subsidy. And people keep on getting caught out because they sign up the people and then they get an email from the government going, we have looked at Fred and he's not eligible for any incentives. And then they freak out because they're like, oh, I thought I was getting a wage subsidy. But no, that just means you're not eligible for the state $4,000. It's just, I think they've had their autoresponder for a couple of years and haven't changed it. Anyway, so you can get wage subsidy for all the people on that list. You just get free courses for the first 4 and not for the last 2. So a few examples of some courses that you might want to put your new employees on. And when I'm saying courses, these are workplace-based training. So they get a qualification, but they are learning on the job, and you are working in partnership with a training provider who's actually delivering the program, creating the assessments and things like that. So most states, you can do certificate 2 in hospitality. So anybody who's trying to find hospitality staff at the moment, you can put them on something like this. You can get some funding, they can get a qualification, you can potentially give them some kind of incentives and bonuses and hopefully retain them a bit longer. Cert 3 in business is another one for general admin staff, or there's a Cert 4 in business as well. And then there's a bunch of more senior courses. So project management, health and safety, entrepreneurship and new business has been a really popular one. Leadership and management diploma or HR diplomas. So if you've got people that are you're coming in sort of a supervisory level, then the leadership and management diploma is a really good opportunity to upskill them and get some funding as well. Is this making sense? I hope I'm not jumping around too much, but let me know if this seems logical to you. Let me know if you need me to clarify anything. Hopefully, Sally, I answered your contract to part-time question. Let me just pop back and see. So Sally was like, is there any state off? I forgot because we talked about that. Advertising and sales. What if the worker is in Melbourne or Sydney and based in the Gold Coast? Okay, there needs to be somebody who can supervise your worker and see them face to face, which has been made interesting, of course, with all the borders being closed. Doesn't have to be you, but they need a colleague with expertise in this area or a contractor, or it needs to be somebody. So if you're putting someone through, for example, a marketing and communications certificate 4, then you need someone with marketing communications expertise who can help support and supervise them. It doesn't have to be you, can be one of your suppliers, but they need to be available and be able to eyeball them and be in there. Oh, thank you, Bruce. It's probably the first time I've made sense for a while. Thank you. Okay, let me just give you some more ideas for new workers. So I think I mentioned this one already. If you've got part-timers right now, you could make them full-time for 12 months and the wage cost could stay the same, and you're not obliged for it to be permanent full-time. It could just be a 12-month contract. And then you could get them to do a whole bunch of extra stuff. Because I don't know about you, but find me a business owner who's not feeling absolutely overwhelmed by their workload at the moment, and I'll be very keen to talk to them. So most of us are just kind of swamped, and here's a chance to get some extra hours of help. If you've got casuals, you could make them part-time and halve your wage bill for a year, which is going to help quite a few people at the moment, I would think. Here's another one that we've done and some of our clients have done. If you're hiring one person anyway, hire a second one just on a 12-month contract, and then the cost is going to be the same as if you hired one person, and you can get some extra projects done. I know this maths is painful, but yeah, basically it sort of feels wrong to talk about people like this, so forgive me, I don't mean it that way, but it's like 2 for the price of 1, like you may as well. And you can rehire stood down staff. So if people have been stood down or have left you and gone and worked somewhere else and come back, and it's more than 6 months, then they count as a new worker. If there's some specific situations, especially for you guys in Victoria and New South Wales, where say you might have hired somebody 5 months ago, they worked for a few weeks, then you went into lockdown and you stood them down, and now they're coming back. So they have been with you for more than 90 days, but they haven't actually been working for the 90 days. This is if we're talking full-timers, or 12 months if they're part-timers. Then most of the agencies that do the sign up for this stuff they're allowed to apply discretion to it, and they are allowing you to still consider them to be new workers because they haven't worked for 90 days or they haven't worked for 12 months. So if anyone's in that position, we'll flag those ones and try and get them through as new workers, which just gives you more course options. Now, existing employees, I will just touch on that because from some of the industries we've got here, it's going to be useful to you guys as well. So here's the language in the rules. It said an existing worker is only eligible to attract the wage subsidy, basically, where they do a trades-based apprenticeship. But I will show you in a moment the list of trades-based apprenticeships because it's not just plumbing and things. There's things like cybersecurity on there and some lands, there's greenkeeping, there's dog grooming, there is work health and safety, there's some, what else is on there? A whole bunch of stuff. Anyway, come back to that. If they've gone from casual to part-time or full-time, then they become eligible. And if they've gone from part-time to full-time, they become eligible. So the list of what they call trades-based Australian apprenticeships is a document called Appendix E. If I can look up things for people and specifically, but it's on a government, it's one of the government documents. And basically what they're saying is to be on that list, it's got to be a Certificate 3 or Certificate 4 level qualification, and it's got to meet a specific outcome, occupational outcome that is a skills shortage area, really. And yeah, if anyone's doubting whether dog groomers are a skills shortage area, I've been trying to get my dog in for weeks. It's like everybody got some sort of a poodle cross during the pandemic, and now everybody's getting their haircuts at my dog hairdresser. So there's definitely a skill shortage. I'm looking for a new business idea. Printing. Okay, so I think printing, there's lots of printing stuff on there actually, Rachel. I was looking at it the other day and there were all the different printing and related kind of trades. So if you've got any existing workers that you want to get a wage subsidy for and upskill them, then your existing workers should be eligible. There's at least half a dozen different printing related courses, because we were looking at IT courses the other day and trying to find them, and everything that was in the IT package was more printing related, if that makes sense. I've got a few examples just to show you existing workers. So trades, lots of things, printing, plumbing, electrical, boiler making, all those kinds of traditional trades. IT, there's a cybersecurity course. Oops, excuse my clicking and excuse my terrible formatting. And it's my cat who's just decided to join us. Please leave. Okay, technician, sorry, now distracted by the cat, at least it wasn't a toddler. There's a Certificate 4 in Home Sustainability Assessment, which is interesting. So there's all sorts of random things on that list that are not necessarily trades. Go away. There's, if you've got office managers in New South Wales and Victoria who are responsible, excuse me, for risk management stuff, so they might be responsible for safety and environmental risk and things. There's an environmental sustainability course. If you've got a safety officer who hasn't got a Certificate 4 in workplace health and safety and they're an existing worker, they can do it here. Now, there's been some people abusing that one because, of course, everybody's gone, oh, all my staff are safety officers, and signed them all up. And so the government's going back and auditing those and booting out anybody who's not actually genuinely a safety officer. So be careful with that one. But and civil construction, all sorts of things. So a lot of them are more technical, but there's if you've got any kind of people doing any kind of technical jobs, you could put existing workers on these. And it doesn't matter if they have another trade or if they've got a different qualification. If they don't have this specific one, then they are allowed to do it. So for cybersecurity, you might have someone with a degree in IT, but if they don't have a certificate for in cybersecurity, then they can still do it. You might have, and your safety officer might have a degree in, public health or something, but if they don't have the cert for, then they can still do it. Here's just a little example of the paperwork that comes back from the government when someone's approved. So that one was certificate for in civil construction supervision for an existing worker. So that's just the sign off to show that it's a thing. Now I'm going to step you through just quickly before we wrap up. I'll step you through the things you have to do to organise this for yourself, and then we can talk about whether you do it or whether we do it. So here's the steps. Your staff in this situation are going to be called trainees because they're learning on the job, obviously. So the first thing that you want to do is look at the courses now. I don't know if anyone's noticed, but all our states have different rules, and it's been driving us a bit insane at the moment. My colleague Rachel, who's here on the panel, is tearing her hair out trying to figure out some of these things, but you will have certain courses that you're eligible for depending on what state you're in. So first thing to do is have a look at the list of approved courses for your state, and your postcode in some cases, but mostly just the state. Look at any new staff that you want to take on and any skills gaps that you might want to fill or any upskilling you want to do. Look at your existing staff and say, who can we offer this opportunity to? Check that the qualifications and that the staff that you choose meet the criteria. So for example, if you're a beauty therapy business, you can't put them all on a plumbing apprenticeship. You've got to have a correlation between their job and what they're learning. Make sure you've got staff to supervise them. So you need somebody in the business with some expertise in that area. If you're going to put them on plumbing, then you obviously need a qualified tradie. If you're putting them on a business course and you're the business owner, then the chances are you can be the supervisor. Hopefully you know something about business. Check the other employee benefits and the other state-based incentives, and check the dates, because some of them are 12 weeks, some of them are 90 days, which 12 weeks is actually 84 days. And I've seen a couple of people get caught out by that. So make sure you check the timelines. Choose self-training provider, and different training providers are approved to deliver these courses as on-the-job training in different states. And then some of them have got subsidies and some of them don't, and some of them have got 100% subsidies, like in New South Wales. The training providers that we tend to refer people to in New South Wales have got 100% funding, courses completely free. Or not free, but paid for by government, free to you and free to your employee. And then you choose what they call an Australian Apprenticeship Support Network provider, which is the ASIN. They're basically the agency that's contracted by the government to come out and sign people up, organise sign-ups, lodge your wage claim, and then lodge your claims for the other incentives as well. So we can help with most of that if you want us to, or we will send you a copy of this slideshow afterwards, so that if you want to work through yourself, you're welcome to do that as well. Now, once you've done all that, the easy bit's claiming the actual money. That bit's really simple. We've got employees on it. We're getting money in the bank account every quarter. It's kind of nice, does work. Once you've got through the registration, then every quarter you'll just get sent a text message and email reminder to say, time to lodge your wage claim. You hop online, you fill in a form. They've just added in the last couple of weeks a bit of a declaration by the employer to say, my person really is doing the training, and I understand that I've got to do this properly, or they can come and make me pay it back, etc. You upload their pay slips to prove that they still work for you, or if they've left, you upload the pay slips until the date that they left, and then normally within 14 days the money hits your bank account. One thing I would say is don't count on this entirely for cash flow, because they seem to be swamped and they seem to be a bit slow at getting money to people. So it's supposed to be the end of each financial quarter, which means that we should have had money in our accounts by the middle of October, and I only got mine in the first week of November. So bear in mind that things can be running 2 or 3 weeks late at the moment. Now, a couple of questions that we've had before that I thought I'd just pop up on here. What if your people don't pass? Some some guy said the other day, so, oh, my staff are kind of thick. So as long as they try, you still get the wage subsidy. So, and they will work with the training provider, and it's not pass, it's like they don't do exams and stuff. This is on the job training largely. So passing is more about being competent at work. And if they're not competent at work, then, you know, you've got other issues. So you'll still get the wage subsidy as long as you are genuinely, you know, supporting and engaging them in this training program. Is it going to take up a whole lot of time? No. Well, the supervisor just needs to sign off to say, yes, the person's been working on these tasks. For the employee, different states have different requirements of up to 3 hours a week that they have to be engaging in the training, but the chances are the training is going to be work-related stuff anyway. So if you're doing a diploma of business and you're doing a unit that's about managing meetings, then they would have to run a meeting. Now, that's presumably something you're going to do anyway. And it doesn't have to be 3 hours every week. It just has to average out that over the time. So there is some commitment. I don't want to say there's not, but it's not a ridiculous commitment, and it's something that you would be doing anyway. Can I give an estimate from the total timeframes from start to dollars in the bank? Yeah, excellent question. Thank you, Bruce. So the way that they do it is they pay at the end of each financial quarter. So if you were to, what are we in now, November? If you put some people on now, then the first quarter ends at the end of December. And so then you would get in the first week of January, which probably will be the second week of January because they'll all be on holidays, you would get a link to upload your pay slips, and then within 1 to 2 weeks of that, you would see money in the bank. So if you put them on now, you're going to get money late January, and you will get half the wages that you've paid them from, say, from today until the end of December. So it'll be like half a quarter because it'll be capped at 7,000. So it depends what you're paying them, but it might be less than that because you might not have had, depends what you've, you know, if they're on a higher than $56,000 salary, then it's more. Then those same people, so they started now, then you'll run through January, February, March, you'll do another claim in early April, and you'll get half the wages that you paid them for January, February, March, which will get paid, it's supposed to be by the 14th of April, but it'll probably be by the end of April. So the payment dates are fixed. It doesn't matter when you start. If that's ish. Now, if you get asked to help, I just want to quickly talk about this. This bureaucracy, I am assuming, is not your core business, probably because you are a sane and sensible human being and you didn't go into this kind of business. Don't know why we did, but anyway. And you're busy because what we're seeing with people is that business is either booming. I was talking to a guy that has a camper trailer business the other day. Oh my goodness, they're making a fortune. Or it's busting if you're in, like, you know, travel and tourism in North Queensland. I'm really sorry. There's really not much in between at the moment, is there, in these kind of COVID times. So you are very welcome to do this yourself. However, and there is a however, I keep running into people whose applications have been rejected for all sorts of reasons. They were coded wrong. We had one yesterday that was rejected because the occupation that the person had to be in to do the leadership and management diploma was manager, and the job title was technical manager. So of course we appealed that and went back and won it, but it's like there are some very ridiculous things happening, and part of that, it's not the fault of the apprenticeship centres who are signing them up. They've hired hundreds of new people who are relatively inexperienced at the same time as the state governments are going, oh, watch out for rorting, make sure the person's really in the job. So there's a lot of stuff going on in the background. So quite a few have been getting rejected, and we've been having to appeal them and get them overturned. The other thing is that people get given bad advice about how to lodge their claims, especially for existing workers, and, you know, how you fill out the forms and stuff like that. So what I would suggest that you do is you get us to do all the setup, like your accountant probably did for you for JobKeeper if you're eligible. We do all the setup, and then once a quarter, you just need to upload your pay slips and tick the yes, we're still doing this box. You carry on with your core business. When the first grant money hits your account, you just forward 10% of the approved amount to us, and then you keep the rest and carry on doing what you do best, which is presumably not managing all this stuff. We are quite happy if cash flow is an issue for you to wait. I mean, we would love for you to pay us when you get approved, but if cash flow is tight, then I completely understand. It's been crazy times, and if you want to wait until the money actually lands in your bank account, that is absolutely fine. We just want to make this work for people, so we'll do whatever we can to make it work. Now, where to from here? So the first step, actually, before we do that, I've got one more question. Let me just check it. Excellent question. Thank you, Rob. You mentioned the scheme is unlikely to be extended past 31st of March 2022. For new employees starting before 31st of March 2022, will receive subsidies for 12 months or do payments finish on 31st of March 2022? Great question. Someone asked me the other day. We have got it in writing that you will get the payments for 12 months from the day that you start. So if you start on the 29th of March next year, please don't. That will give everybody a nervous breakdown. But if you start on that day, you will get 12 months of wage subsidy from the registration date. So registrations close on the 31st of March, but payments go from there. As business owners, can we employ ourselves? No, I'm pretty much the only person in this business not on a wage subsidy, sadly. But, you know, if you've got a spouse and they're not a director or whatever, then they're an employee, aren't they? Or they could become an employee. But you can't put the director or like major shareholders or CEOs and things on it, because somebody's got to train you, and presumably you're not going to train yourself. You might not listen. So where to from here? The first step is for you to give us the go ahead, give us some info, and we will do a pre-assessment. We will review it. Actually, I'll get one of my colleagues to drop the link. We've got a quick quiz that you could do. If you just go through that quiz, give us the information, and it basically says, here's our stuff, and if you can get us some money, then we'll pay you some money. And we'll go through that and we'll do a review. And if we think that you'll qualify, then we will talk to you before we action it. Obviously, we're not going to go and launch things without talking to you first. And I think we've got that in the quiz. If we don't think that you'll qualify, then we'll have a chat with you and see what we can help you figure out. If it's a really simple one and it's just something like, say you're a trade business and you've got a plumber or you've got a labourer who you want to turn into a plumber, then we'll just say to you, look, you just go and sign them up as an apprentice, and we won't do those ones. There's no point unless you really want us to. But if it's more complex and we look at it and we go, no, you'll definitely be better off to get us to do it, then we will tell you that, and those will be the ones that we'll go ahead and do. Now, if you would like to email my colleague Elisa on the email there, elisaw@stagestrategy.com.au, she's happy to answer any questions. Rachel has just dropped the link to the quiz in the chat. So if you want to grab that link, otherwise we can email that out to you later on today. But if you want to grab it and just quickly do it while it's on your mind. We just need to know kind of how many staff do you have? Are they part-time, full-time? When did they start? If you don't know exactly, just give us roughly, and we can do a quick quiz. And Rachel will go through those today. And if there's anybody who's got employees that are about to expire, well, not the employees, but the what do you call it, the eligibility date, then she'll get hold of you really quickly. If not, it might be a couple of days, because we do have quite a few of these to do for people, as you can imagine. But we are making sure that we stay ahead of any expiry dates. So we'll definitely get onto those straight away. Pause for breath. Does anybody have any other questions before we wrap up? If not, you want to email Lisa on that email address, or email her and I can give you a call, or she can give you a call, or whatever. We're all working from home, as you can see, cat plants. So I hope that was useful. I hope, good luck if you decide to do it yourself. I hope you get it. If you decide to get us to help you, we will do our best to get you as much funding and as many skills as you possibly can. We think it's an awesome opportunity. I mean, I've never seen anything like this before, and I don't think we'll see it again in our lifetime. So let's make the most of the silver lining of this pandemic, and get the government to help us grow our workforces. Thank you, Sally. That's very nice. All right, thanks everybody. Have a good Thursday. Talk to you again soon. Bye-bye.